Welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories, where people complied to the letter, but not the spirit of our request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Doctor's Note. I worked at a little US-based startup that was being acquired by an industry giant. I had a good management role and flew across the globe a lot, but as a startup, we are frugal and kept spending as low as possible. I had surgery planned for months before the acquisition. A serious one. I have the surgery and all is well. I am off for like 4 weeks to recover. And as I'm recovering, the merger into the new company completes and we have a large company event in China coming up. I call my VP and tell him that I would love to come, but cannot fly sitting up for 12 hours yet. Flying flat in business class works, but will cost $1,500 more. The VP says, that is a no-brainer, we want you there. Book it. So I try to book, and here comes Numbnuts, CPO of the new big company. I explain the situation to him and the VP pre-approval, and he gives me the "we bought you guys. That is not how things work in this company, mister" speech. He needs a doctor's proof of my surgery. I offer to send him some pictures of my surgery and scars if he doesn't believe me, but he insists that it needs to be a doctor's signature on it and an explanation of why. That is how the procedure works here. I tell him I was operated on by a top surgeon who doesn't have the time to write a letter to a tiny CPO. Numbnuts ends the call power tripping with, "Well, I guess you won't be going to Shanghai, mister." For the following week I had a planned checkup with the surgeon. He asks how things are, and I say all is great, except Mr. Numbnuts making things unnecessarily complicated at work. The surgeon smiles and says, "Don't worry, I know the type, we will get him." 2 days later, I get a letter from him in the mail, detailing that any flight over 15 minutes needs to be business class for the next 18 months to not risk my recovery. I submit the letter to Numbnuts. He forwards it to HR and expense approvals, and I racked in more miles that year than I did in 5 years before. Thanks for the tip, Numbnuts. Probably ended up costing them at least $20,000 extra. The next story is called Not Allowed to Decide. I'm a civil engineer and I work in the geotechnical field. When someone wants to build a building, railroad, bridge or similar, they hire us to do an investigation of the soil beneath the site, and we give them recommendations on foundation and or subgrade design. At this time I was working for a very small engineering company and we always subcontracted out the drilling part of the investigation. This requires a drill rig and the people to operate it, so I was there to take soil samples and write a log. My boss was notorious for being a pain to these drilling subcontractors, always making them do extra stuff for no reason. These contractors typically work on a day rate. They charge X dollars per day, regardless if they work a full 8 hours or not. In my boss's mind, if they weren't working for a full 8 hours, he wasn't getting his money's worth. On one of my first drilling jobs, I incurred the boss's wrath for daring to let the drilling crew leave after 7.5 hours on a hot day. My boss was furious and informed me that I was not to make any decisions myself in the field. I was annoyed, but respected his orders. His micromanaging and stupid orders became a routine annoyance. Fast forward almost a year later. We are doing a drilling job in an athletic field that is proposed to be used as the site for a new school. I arrive and meet the drillers on the first day, and as planned we drill a 60 feet deep hole and take samples. The field was at the top of a 50 feet high hill, and the location of the hole, drilled vertically into the ground, was between the bases of our baseball field. Because of the first factor, the groundwater level ended up being almost 60 feet down. We check groundwater levels, as this can impact foundation designs. Sometimes we install a monitoring well, so we can come back later and record the water level. Our work scope included installing one of these wells. It's also important to note that in addition to their day rate, the drilling contractors charge us for materials, and the well is charged per foot. The price was about $25 per foot. I call my boss after we finish this hole and tell him the groundwater is 60 feet down and suggest a well would be prohibitively expensive. He insists we install a 30 feet deep well that we all know will be dry, which translates to about $1,000 between the well and its vote box cover. I also suggest we pick a different location, but he insists we place it right here. Remember, right here is between second and third base, and a completed well includes a roadblock sticking out of the ground. I realize this is dumb and may cause problems down the line, but I'm not allowed to make decisions, right? I can't overrule him, so we do what we are told. About 3 weeks later, we get an angry email from our client, asking why there's an object between two of the bases in the baseball field. The boss couldn't get mad at me, because he had told me to place it exactly there, after all. So we now have to remove this roadbox, which is essentially a 6-inch steel tube with a cap, cemented into the ground. We don't have the tools for this, so my boss tries to strong-arm the drilling contractor into removing it for free. They of course refuse and say, "We just did what you told us to." Ultimately, my boss, who is also the owner of the company I work for, has to pay them. It was half of a day rate, about $1,000, for essentially 10 minutes of work to chisel out and remove the roadbox and fill in the top of the hole, plus 2 hours of pay and mileage for me to return to the site, take a photo of the completed job and leave. He had to eat all of this instead of billing it to our client. I wish I could say he learned something from the ordeal, but I certainly felt justified, and he was less overbearing after this happened. I now work for a much larger company that runs its own drilling rigs, and we no longer have stupid stuff like this happen. The last story is called Made the Point. I'm a high school teacher of an elective subject that lots of kids take and enjoy. I build great relationships and generally have the same kids for multiple years, so I get all of the tea spilled to me. There was an incident during an after-school event. I was in one space doing my thing, and some students who had been in another part of the building came in and said, "There are people having intercourse in this other room." I follow them to the scene of the crime, and there's nobody there. I do all of the appropriate follow-up to see if anything actually went down, but no body, no crime. And no one actually saw anything. They just said they saw the couple come out of the room, and it smelled like it when they went in after. Also, no cameras in the part of the building in question, a thing I had pointed out as a problem multiple times in the past. Fast forward for like 4 months, and the principal calls me down to their office. They proceed to chew me out for not reporting the incident. It had finally made its way through the rumor mill up to the top. I tell them all of the steps I took to follow up at the time, and that it didn't seem like there was anything to report. To be fair, it was early in my career, so maybe I was wrong. I asked them, and what I assumed would be received rhetorically, where's the line on what unverified, evidence-free rumors I should be reporting? And they respond, all of them. I proceed to call and email them after every single conversation. I have read a kid that could be even remotely construed as problematic. We are talking a minimum of 3 times a day, usually more, for 3 weeks straight, including weekends. The most satisfying was on a Friday afternoon at about 4:45. The principal picks up the phone, and before I can say a word, they say, "You've made your point." Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.